All right, and welcome to Gamer Chat. This is for the week of October 23rd. I'm CabXYZ. Joining me today is Brad, also known as Soundman on site, and Joe, also known as Scrotus Killmeister. And this week we're talking about Batman licensed games and what it means to be Game of the Year, which apparently some people don't still understand what Game of the Year entails. First, I want to talk about Batman though, because I put the review up this week, and it is by far my favorite game this year so far, and it is just phenomenally done. Um, Joe, you're the other one besides me who's played this. What are your thoughts so far?
Oh, the game is fantastic. It takes the Assassin's Creed gameplay style and just runs with it. It's just an amazing game, visually, graphics, sound. It's all one big awesome package, and especially if you're a Batman nerd like me, and I know Rick is as well. You're just gonna go nuts because it's just a big mountain of popcorn full of villains and Batman universe. It's just totally cool.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic game. It feels more. Arkham City was great. It just the setting, I like it. It gave a ton of background on the character and the characters. Um, Finding the different things in and out, all the Riddler challenges and everything gave great character background information and everything. But this, now that it's set actually almost close to Gotham City, it feels like Batman. It just feels like I'm actually going through Gotham, beating, skull crushing thugs and having my way with them, and it's just a lot of fun. Um, Rocksteady Studios developed Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. They've gone from doing Urban Chaos, which was a mediocre shooter on the Xbox, into becoming this AAA developer, and has really brought Batman into a very bright light. I mean, this game has just both games have been phenomenal and have just done they have done Batman so much justice the way that Christopher Nolan's films have done justice to the character on the big screen.
Oh yeah, I totally agree that it does the whole Batman universe, comics, animated, and live action movies, except for Joel Schumacher's concept. It does everything total justice. It, just in general, the game is great. It takes the open world sandbox game type, lets you run with it. You meet villains at a good pace. You can stop and do side missions for days if you wanted to, or just run around and beat up random thugs. It's just yeah, just a totally awesome game. I'm definitely saying it's my favorite by far so far this year.
Yeah, the story is. I'm not going to spoil anything. Just as my review, I'm trying to keep things spoiler free because it is a really in-depth story. It really tests Batman as a character, as a human being, and the symbol that he represents. And I love that. That was one of the biggest things I've loved about Christopher Nolan's films. And Rocksteady Studios almost, I don't want to say copy and pasted this idea, but they really brought out who this character is and has just done a phenomenal job. And to me, it, I can't get enough of the game. I played through it once. I'm on my second playthrough on a new game plus mode. I've been trying to get every Riddler trophy. I'm about 150 off from getting all of those. It's just I can't get enough of the game. It's they went above and beyond themselves with this one.
For sure, I totally agree. If this game doesn't get some sort of accolade for being best of the year, I will be totally shocked. It's granted it's a sequel, but it's an original sequel. It's not a shovelware like some other Call of Duty games are.
Yeah, it's something, and it's bringing licensed games into a better light. We've had some decent ones in the past. Chronicles of Riddick was very good. Escape from Butcher Bay, Transformers War for Cybertron was another great one. Even Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions last year was a fairly decent licensed game, but nothing has come to the level that Rocksteady Studios have done with Batman. Uh, Brad, do you know, or can you name any other game that has brought licensed games from, the craptacular movie games that we get, bringing them to, AAA status like this one?
Well, it's funny you mention that because generally when I see a movie come out, the first thing I think is, "Oh God, please, not another subpar title." And I've got relatives who think that getting this game for their children will make them happy when everyone knows that they're going to be terrible. That being said, there have been a few that have shined in recent memory. A lot of the Battle, or not Battle for Middle Earth, but a lot of the Lord of the Rings games have shined. Battle for Middle Earth is a prime example of a great RTS. It also had a couple of ones based directly off the movies that were a lot of fun. They were available on all the platforms. The one I just finished, actually, which I found surprising, was the Transformers War for Cybertron. It was a very lengthy game. It was a quality story. The controls were good. It didn't try to pretend to be anything that it wasn't. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I probably put 10 hours or so into it, and I didn't even play the Decepticon campaign. But yeah, sometimes you see good quality licensed titles come out, but it's not very often, and it's nice to see that a few studios are taking the license seriously and not just trying to make a quick dollar off of it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that frustrates me too is something BioShock's not technically a licensed title, but you have a studio that takes a license like BioShock, 2K Marin for example, and they talked up, oh, we know the license, we love BioShock, we love this, and while it was a decent game, it just you would think someone that's so passionate about something would bring more quality to their product. I mean, it may be also, a factor of money, time, and manpower, but it seems like there's a few studios out there, High Moon with Transformers, Rocksteady with Batman, even Beanox with Spider-Man, that it just seems like, these development houses actually know a few things about these characters and are trying to make them better than what they have been in the past.
Yeah, but we are still getting a fair share of crap licensed games. There's a few that have already come out recently. The new Spider-Man game is supposed to be pretty awful, as well as the X-Men Destiny game. I guess that's been getting one digit scores across the board from everybody. It's just total garbage, which is a shame because it comes from the company that did Two Human. I thought that game was pretty damn good.
Yeah, Two Human was good. It had its faults, especially the death screen. But yeah, like X-Men Destiny, I was actually looking forward to it. It was kind of something original. You got to take, just a random mutant and go along with the X-Men, and ends up flopping, being mundane and complete crap. And I may pick it up if it's in the $20 bin, but I mean that's not going to help Silicon Knights get, another game, or God forbid Activision pump more money into something else that needs another sequel. But yeah, like Brad mentioned, Lord of the Rings. We're also getting Lord of the Rings War for the North this coming November, which is looking promising. Um, but yeah, there just needs to be a more steady stream of licensed games that just aren't crap. I mean, High Moon Studios that did War for Cybertron did, the Transformer Dark of the Moon game, and it was, rushed. It wasn't very good, and they need if I wish they would put more development time into even movie games. Iron Man, we've gotten two very awful games from Sega from them. They finally learned their lesson with Captain America, which has been getting decent reviews, but still nothing spectacular. But I just wish these companies would take more time with these characters, take more time. They most of these characters have a great legacy. Why aren't we getting games that show any of this? Can any of you two shine a light on any of this?
Well, in my opinion, it's all about the dollars. Since there's a high-profile IP attached to it, like Iron Man, Captain America, Batman, whatever. they're going to shovel out a game because they know someone's going to buy it just because of the title. They'll get, they'll throw a small dollar amount in it and just try to squeeze out as much money as they can. Unfortunately, that's how today's world works. We want more money for less quality instead of more quality for less money.
Yeah, I've noticed that it's a common trend, and it's happened a lot in recent years. I would say 10, 15 years ago that your average game had a decent amount of quality put into it, not so much quantity. It's turned the other way now because they've learned that they can give the user very little and charge them a lot for it, and then charge them for additional content, and so on and so on. The same goes for the movie games. I mean, they only have to dump $100,000 into it, and they'll make $3 million. And for people who don't know or know of reviews or even look at them, they buy the game unsuspectingly and they can't take it back, and that's how they make their money. Now, not all studios do that. I wanted to mention one other title that really stood out to me, and that was GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64. That game stood out in many, many, many regards, and people don't realize how much that game changed the industry, at least on the console side.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic game. I mean, the main campaign pretty much went through the story of the movie. I mean, didn't try to deviate in any way, and we got a hell of a multiplayer game out of it as well. I mean, it's still stands as one of the best multiplayer games on that console, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's still people in, dorm rooms or whatever that still pull that out and play it because it's that good, and it still stands. And it was kind of a shame to see Activision kind of retool it and not bring back what we remember from the original. The new one, the one that they're remaking on the PS3 and 360, the GoldenEye Reloaded, it doesn't look bad, but it just kind of looks again like how Quantum of Solace did. It looked like a reskin Call of Duty, and that's really not what James Bond's about. I mean, there's more to that character than just run guns, and explosions.
Yeah, it doesn't quite capture the magic of the original release, and I remember putting in countless hours into that game. Countless hours. I remember using my Game Shark, if for those of you who were around during that time, changing the Game Shark codes and unlocking that secret level that you couldn't get anywhere else unless you used the Game Shark. All the special modes. I mean, I had to have put hundreds of hours into that game.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty awesome. I also got to bring up. I want to point the Wii out. It seems to have opened the floodgates for some really, really awful, shoddy software. Before the Wii was out, I think the garbage that was coming out wasn't as bad, but once the system opened up and it was for the casual gamer, people that normally didn't pay attention to what they were, grabbing, it just if it had a pretty box, they were grabbing it up, and it seems that it just started pumping. The Nintendo just opened the floodgates for whatever developer to throw anything in a box, throw it on a CD, and say, "Hey, play this," and people would buy it. But hopefully, with this next gen of the Wii U, that may go away. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
No, and it seems like every generation there's a shovelware scapegoat. On the previous, one, the PS2 was it. Now it's the Wii. The DS has its fair share of crap that's on there too. And yeah, it's just any company that can slap, Batman, Spider-Man, or any licensed product on the front of a box and be like, here, buy it, ooh, we got NASCAR kart racers. Someone out there is gonna buy crap like that, and it's a shame because these companies don't really want to give the dues to, all these different licenses. Look at Madden this year. Madden has the worst reviews it's had in a decade this past year because honestly, EA starting to, in my opinion, abuse the license a bit. It's the only company that makes a football game, and whenever EA and 2K both had the license, you got two great games that were competing every year to for the consumer dollar. And then EA bought it up in 2000, I think it was 2005, and we've been getting mediocre Madden games ever since.
True enough. just the shovelware is awful. But also back to the licensed properties, the Lego series across the board of games for all the systems, handheld and console based, even PC, if I'm not mistaken. They seem to have portrayed these licenses rather well. You know, and that's all without even having a dialogue in them. You know, it's everything is totally shown visually. There's no speaking in whatsoever, which is awesome. But I haven't heard of anyone saying that they played a bad Lego game yet. At least that's one IP that seems to be trying to hold true to whatever license it's portraying.
Yeah, it's very true because I have Lego Star Wars, the complete saga, the first Indiana Jones, and Lego Harry Potter, and they're fun, and it's something I can sit down with my cousin and we're not blowing stuff up. There's not blood and gore splashing across the screen or anything, but it's something that still holds my interest because it's doing the property justice without, totally destroying it, and it's toned down enough to where I can, enjoy it with, a younger audience. So, yeah, I do give Traveler's Tales quite a bit of credit for what they've done with the Lego series because they've sold millions of copies of every one that's come out. Like to see maybe like a Marvel or something come out next or DC. That'd be kind of neat. But yeah, very good point that you brought up the Lego series.
To touch on the Legos, I originally purchased the original Lego game that came out many years ago. I think it was called Lego Creator. Um, I have not played a Lego game since, so I can't touch any others. But to be honest, the reason I haven't played any others because they were licensed games, and I've always considered those to be rip-offs. And maybe it's just me needing to, check them out and see that they're not just rip-offs of the movie licenses. That being said, there's been a plethora of subpar license releases in the last 10 years, and maybe that's the reason I haven't touched them.
Yeah, you should check out at least Star Wars something. They're fun. They're not really difficult. They're basically go through a level, collect as much crap as you can, and they're not bad. But one game I do want to touch on too that was a licensed game that just came out recently back in September that all of us did like was Warhammer 40K Space Marine. All of us had a great time with it, and at least for me, not reading any of the books, but it's gotten me interested in reading the books. At least to me, I mean, the story was very interesting. Mark Strong did a perfect voiceover for Captain Titus. I loved it, and it's gotten me interested to. I want to read the books. So I was looking them up last night on my Nook Color. Couldn't find any on there, but I would like to go to a store and maybe buy a couple. I know Brad, you have, and that's. I wish more games that had licenses that maybe I would want to check out and would bring me to reading or to checking out other forms of media about that property.
I am not a huge reader, but I love the Warhammer books. And since we're on the topic of Warhammer and Space Marine is probably one of my favorite games I've played in a long time. I have had a small problem of not being able to focus on a game and just dropping it. I did not have that problem with Space Marine. I played it all the way through. I played it again because I found it so interesting. The universe is fantastic. I'd basically call it Gears of War in space, and I actually think Space Marine is a better title than a couple of the other Gears titles. Yes, I know, shoot me now. I'm sure I'll be branded a traitor to the Gears franchise, but Space Marine is probably the most fun I've had in a game in a long time.
Well, to be fair, Gears and Space Marine are two different games. I mean, they are similar, uh, but as far as Gears is a cover-based third-person shooter, Warhammer 40K isn't. There is no cover-based system because you're a Space Marine. They run into battle and kill everything. They don't hide and shoot from cover. That's not how they roll. So in that respect, you're not forsaking Gears. You're not forsaking Warhammer because, in my opinion, they're similar in some slim ways, but they're a different title.
Yeah. One last thing I want to point out with the licensed games and everything is now that we're starting to get better licensed games such as Batman, Warhammer, and stuff like that. Hollywood's taking the initiative to try to make better movies based on game licenses, and I know this could be a whole nother gamer chat. We could probably go on for hours with this, but I mean, Sony's going to be making an Assassin's Creed movie that hopefully is a promising, film in the making. Everything about the Uncharted movies just, they got a new director, but as long as they leave Mark Wahlberg out of it, I think it'll be all right. But um, real quick, do you guys have anything licensed movies? Should Hollywood just stay away, or should, as long as they have something creative to bring to the table and respect to the license, should they continue with it?
No, I totally. If they can bring a quality game, in other words, leave Uwe Boll out of ever touching anything video game oriented, get a good writer, get a good director with solid acting. I'm totally for a video game based movie. I was really hoping for Halo to come out because I mean Peter Jackson and oh god, I can't remember the other guy that the guy that did District 9. They were both attached
Neil
to it.
Bloom, Neil Blomkamp.
Thank you. And yeah, I was totally all about that. I would because they weren't going to use Master Chief. It was going to be in the Halo universe. It was going to be something totally new, and I would have liked to have seen that. But of course, it was just too much political BS, and it never happened. But no, I'm totally for. I'm all about that stuff. So if it's something that interests me, then yeah, make a movie about it. I'll be there.
There's actually three as of recent that I'd like to see. The first and foremost is a Mass Effect trilogy, one that's made, not over the top gore, violence, whatever, but a quality movie with a heavy storyline. You could make a three movie series out, a 3 movie trilogy out of it. I think it could be fantastic. I think it could be the Star Wars of the modern age. The next I'd like to see, if possible, is maybe a Deus Ex movie. Something, again, with a quality director. Maybe some no-name actors, because they tend not to be as greedy and tend to actually put a little effort forth into their roles. And I wouldn't mind seeing a Warhammer movie. But, that being said, I wouldn't mind seeing it in all CG. I'm going to touch on one other here, and that's Starship Troopers. The Starship Troopers franchise would make a good game and B, a good movie if it was directed and produced by the right people. And it hasn't been yet. So hopefully we'll see that with the new one coming out, Starship Troopers Invasion, in the next year or so.
All right, and one last topic I want to talk with you guys about today is I mentioned it during my review. I know Game Informer did it in their review and mentioning that Arkham City could be possibly the game of the year. And as far as I can tell on message boards, there's some people that don't really understand what game of the year entails. They just think it's, oh, it's the game with a, huge multiplayer component. You're blowing people up for hours online. There's explosions everywhere. Not that I'm dropping hints to something that should never be, game of the year. But I don't think people get, whenever we say game of the year, they don't get that. They just think it's, it's the best selling or, the most popular, which in most cases it's not. Joe, I'll start with you first. What is your description that would be suitable for game of the year?
Well, in my opinion, it'd have to be first of all originality. If it's a sequel, did it take what was based on the original farther and in a new direction? Art design, story. If there's a multiplayer component, is it worth it? I mean, is the multiplayer anything that is worth the write home about? Which I've noticed most Game of the Year editions of anything have nothing to do with a multiplayer component because it's all pretty much the same. But yeah, I think it's just a roundhouse of quality. Visuals, audio, gameplay, all tied into one. Just putting out a quality product that is truly worth being called Game of the Year.
Yeah, I'd like to, you mentioned Game of the Year and quality. I mean, I'm going to take an older game and use Half-Life as a prime example. Anyone who plays it now will be like, why does this game get Game of the Year? Well, Game of the Year is more than just, hey, I got online and I was blow stuff up for 20,000 hours. Game of the Year involves, quality mechanics, quality visuals. Is there a good story? How does the game play? Yes, the multiplayer is a small factor. How is the community? Is it moddable? Is it are people still going to want to play it in mass in 2 years? Will people still be talking about it in 5? How are the characters? How are the monsters? Or whatever the game is about. A lot of modern games don't focus on anything other than the multiplayer, and people don't get that's not what makes a quality game. What makes a quality game is the whole package, and a lot of developers skip the single player and focus on just the multiplayer, or the other way around, and that's why they don't get Game of the Year.
Yeah, like I want to bring up the example of Uncharted 2. 2 years ago, won Game of the Year. For most publications, the single player was phenomenal. By far, it took what the original did correctly, took what it did wrong, subtracted the wrong, did more of the right. It's still one of the best games I have played. The voice acting was phenomenal, the cinematics, the game mechanics, everything was so well done, and for Naughty Dog to do all this within 18 months was amazing, first off. But the fact that they just took everything that was so good, just like with Arkham City from Arkham Asylum, they just took everything that was so good from the first one and multiplied it by 10. And as far as Uncharted 3 goes, I don't know what they can really do to improve because Uncharted 2 was so well done. But Mass Effect 2 was another example that got many Game of the Year accolades last year. Mass Effect, in my opinion, really brought BioWare into the new age of where they're at. Knights of the Old Republic was a fantastic game and deserved every accolade that got, but Mass Effect was an original universe that they brought to life, that they have this conversation system that they throw in every game now, and Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely love the game. I have played it through a couple times now, and I eagerly await Mass Effect 3. And that's something I would love, or something that I think Game of the Year should be about. It should be something that you're going to remember years down the road as being a pivotal point for either a console, maybe a year, something. It needs to have, lose my train of thought here, but it just needs to be something that stands out, not as, like both you guys have mentioned, not as something that either, it's just a fantastic multiplayer, fantastic single player, but it's something that encompasses everything and does everything right. Battlefield Bad Company 2 is a good example. I absolutely love the multiplayer on it. I've thrown tons of hours into it, but the single player, I've never finished it. I don't think I've ever even gotten to the third mission. So something like that, in my opinion, just wouldn't qualify for that.
Yeah, they Oh, yeah. Generally I've noticed that single player games tend to get the Game of the Year Edition award often than not. It's not that multiplayer games can't get it. It just generally games with a heavy emphasis on the single player usually get the Game of the Year award. And I say that, and I think the reason for that is because people want to be told the story. And multiplayer games are aimed, at least your modern ones like Battlefield 3 and Call of Duty and Counter-Strike are all aimed at the masses. But people who truly want to be entertained by a quality story are going to go to your single-player titles. Dragon Age, Half-Life, Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, all those games got huge awards because they targeted that group. Basically, you are playing the movie, and a lot of people love to do that. And I think it takes a lot more to create an immersive single-player game and quality story than it does to just throw together some multiplayer mechanics and call it good.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And it's just to play devil's advocate. Playing Modern Warfare 1 for Call of Duty. It was great. It was a great campaign. I was totally involved, but it ended, I mean, in what, like 4.5, 5 hours. If they would have extended that, doubled it even, that could have been a contender for a true game of the year because the story was intriguing. You had good characters, but you had like this 4 hour mission and then it was over. And then it was all about the multiplayer. The See if they would actually stick to their guns and make a quality campaign to go with all that multiplayer fluff, they would. I think it would be a true contender for a Game of the Year award. But that I don't see that happening, being that they keep popping them out every year, year after year.
Yeah, and somehow their stories continually get worse. Black Ops still, the fact I finished that's amazing. But yeah, just to comment on what you two said is, yeah, I think this industry is going towards something between movies and what we consider games. And I've always said I've hated that term because I think this industry is something else. Mass Effect, Batman, something that gives us a good story, a cinematic element to it, and really tries to immerse us instead of feeling like we're, playing paintball out in the field for hours with more big explosions. Um, but yeah, do you guys have any last things to before we wrap up?
Uh, Pretty much. Yeah, the game of the year award, it should go to a game with a quality campaign for sure. Because if anything, it takes more talent and more effort to put out a single player campaign than to put it, unless you're doing something unique in the multiplayer stance. Um, you don't have to worry about story, or as long as you have the basis of a story to throw in to make the multiplayer work, then you really don't have to worry about much else. And then you're already pulling all the graphics and everything from whatever 5 minute campaign you throw together. So, in my opinion, if you put a really good campaign, single player campaign, or even co-op campaign out, then you will be definitely a contender for the Game of the Year award.
If I'm going to give out a Game of the Year award, then I want a complete package. I want a quality. It doesn't even have to have a multiplayer package, but I want a complete package. I want a good story. I want good mechanics. I want good graphics. I want what's expected of games during that time period to be available to me. And if you can't provide those, then I'm not going to give you Game of the Year.
All right. Well, I thank you guys for both being on here this week. Next week we'll be back and we're going to be talking Battlefield 3. Of course, it's the biggest release this year, next to a few others we won't name, mainly because we don't play them. But at least as far as our eyes, it's the biggest release coming up, and we'll be back next week to talk about the Xbox 360 version and the PC. We'll see you next week.